I swear, the moment those words left her lips, something deep inside me splintered. She stood at the foot of our bed, zipping up that red suitcase I gave her last Christmas, stuffing it with high heels I hadn't seen in years, and lingerie that had never once graced our bedroom. Her smirk was theatrical, almost cartoonish, like a villain from some bad soap opera, and she didn't even try to hide it anymore. "You can't stop me," she whispered, voice calm, cruel. "I'm going to impress him." My heart didn't just fall, it shattered, broke apart piece by jagged piece. I didn't speak. I just stood there in the doorway, hollow, like a ghost haunting the life I used to live. My wife, was packing for a weekend with the man she'd been sneaking off to see. The silence between us wasn't peaceful. It pulsed with betrayal. Her name's Lindsay Morgan. The woman I married 5 years ago, in front of 200 people, pledging forever and loyalty. I remember her voice cracking during "Till death do us part." I thought it was love. Maybe it was warning. "Who the hell is he?" I finally asked. She didn't flinch, didn't even glance up, just kept folding that silk nightgown like she was packing for a vacation, not detonating a marriage. "You don't know him," she said, voice ice. "He's better for me. Ambitious. Alive. Not stuck in." She didn't need to finish. Routine. That word wrapped around my chest and squeezed. I wanted to scream, throw something, demand answers. But I couldn't move. I just watched, like someone watching their house burn down from the curb, frozen and useless. She was so damn casual, so smug. Like cheating was some rite of self-discovery. But her confidence didn't come from innocence. It came from certainty. She knew I wouldn't stop her. She thought I'd collapse, that I'd cry in silence and let her go. And maybe I would have if I didn't need to know how we got here. That's when it started to click. All the signs I'd brushed off. The sudden gym obsession. The new perfumes. The late-night girls' nights that ended at 2 a.m., her stumbling in like a giddy teenager. Her phone, always flipped face down. Her deflections whenever I asked about work. The way she stopped looking at me like her man and started seeing me as background noise. She used to light up when I walked in. Now, I barely flickered in her world. She grabbed a pair of lace underwear, held it up like a trophy, then looked at me with those green eyes I used to lose myself in and said, "You're overthinking. This doesn't have to be dramatic, Ethan. Just let me live a little. Live. I paid for that suitcase. That car she's driving to the airport. That bed she used to lie in, to me and to him. And now she's saying she needs to live a little? By impressing him? You sure about this?" I asked, voice barely holding steady. "You really want to throw us away?" That smirk again. There is no us anymore. And with that, she zipped the suitcase and brushed past me like I was a stranger. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat on the couch with a bottle of bourbon in my hand, the weight of that moment dragging me down. I kept seeing her face. That arrogance. That ease with which she twisted the knife. No tears. No explanations. Not even a shred of regret. And that was just the surface. Because the next morning, when I woke up in the silence of an empty house, head pounding from alcohol and exhaustion, I found out what she'd really been hiding. Her side of the bed was untouched. She hadn't even pretended to sleep next to me. I don't know what drove me to do it. Anger, maybe. Instinct. But I walked to her nightstand and opened the drawer. There it was. A second phone. Not the iPhone with the floral case and the Grand Canyon photo. This was a burner. Cheap, scratched, still buzzing with secrets. No passcode. Like she never thought I'd look. Or didn't care if I did. The messages were all there. Dozens. Hundreds. From some guy named Chad. Chad Thompson. Of all names. Worked at her firm. In marketing. Married. With kids. That made it even filthier. Messages like, "Can't wait to see you in that red dress. He doesn't deserve you. I'll make you feel like a queen. Bring that lotion I like. I want to taste every inch of you." My throat clenched, skin blazing like I'd stepped into fire. I hurled the phone across the room. It hit the wall with a dull crack. But it wasn't enough. Nothing would be. Still, I picked it back up. Scrolled. Dug deeper, like a masochist hell-bent on bleeding. The texts were endless filth, taunts in digital ink. Photos, too. Mostly her. Mirror selfies in our bathroom. A damn video in the guest room. The one her sister used to sleep in when she visited. I caught my reflection in the black screen of the TV. Pale. Hollow-eyed. Rage throbbing just beneath my skin like a second, furious heartbeat. She'd used our home like a game board, like I wasn't even real. No, worse than that. Like I didn't matter. I texted her. One word. Why? She didn't answer. By noon, a message popped up from Tyler, an old college friend who always saw more than he ever said. Hey man, this might be weird, but I just saw Lindsay at the airport. She wasn't alone. A photo followed. Blurry, but no mistaking it. Lindsay in tight jeans and shades, arm in arm with Chad. Laughing, her hand on his chest like it belonged there. No shame. No guilt. I called her. Voicemail. Then a text. I told you not to make this messy. Please don't embarrass yourself. Embarrass myself? I was unraveling, spiraling so fast I couldn't even feel the floor beneath me. I stormed to the closet, yanked out my old gym duffel, and started tossing things in. I wasn't leaving. I was hunting. I knew where Chad lived. Had driven her there once when her car was in the shop. She'd said it was for a work meeting. Some coworker named Chad. Of course. By 2 p.m., I pulled into his neighborhood. Pristine lawns, porch flags, laughing kids riding bikes. All of it reeked of lies. His wife answered the door, Rebecca. Soft voice. Worn eyes. The kind of woman who bakes cookies for fundraisers and waits up for someone who's not coming home. I didn't want to destroy her world. But truth has a habit of doing that. I'm Ethan, I said. We need to talk. It's about your husband and my wife. Her face fell like glass off a ledge. We sat in her living room, both trembling. She opened a bottle of wine, her hands shaking, and poured us each a glass. I showed her the messages. She didn't cry. She just stared, hollowed out, like she'd suspected all along, but never dared to open the door and face the storm. Then she showed me something, a receipt. Hotel in Miami. 2 guests. Chad's name on it, plain as day. They hadn't even used aliases. They wanted to be found. Because to them, we were already ghosts. Rebecca excused herself, voice cracking. I stayed in the silence, clutching the wine like it might hold me together. Then I heard her, sobbing in the kitchen. Deep, broken sobs. I didn't go to her. I couldn't. My own soul was in shambles. All I could hear was Lindsay's voice. You can't stop me. All I could see was that damn red suitcase. I should have known. But I didn't. And now, I couldn't unknow. The drive home was dead quiet. No music. No distractions. Just the low hum of the engine and the pressure of my fists locked around the steering wheel. My knuckles were bone white when I caught my reflection in the rear view. I looked like I'd just returned from war. Maybe I had. The house was still. Too still. Her perfume lingered, ghost-like, taunting. I went to the kitchen, poured what was left of the bourbon, and sat at the table where we used to plan futures that never came true. Then I opened my laptop. I had to see it. All of it. Needed to drown in the full truth before deciding what to do next. Logged into our shared cloud drive, something she'd probably forgotten existed. She hated syncing photos. Said it was annoying. But it was still active. There it was. A hidden album. Her and Chad. Beach days. Hotel rooms. Him feeding her dessert. Her kissing his cheek. His hands gripping her waist like she was his. And then, her in that blue bikini. The one I bought her on our anniversary trip to Aruba. She never wore it for me. But she wore it for him. She wore it. Posed in it. Captioned it. Impressing him just fine. That was the last straw. I slammed the laptop shut so hard the corner cracked, the sound sharp like a gunshot in the silence. I stood up, yanked a plate from the cabinet, our wedding china, and hurled it against the wall. It exploded into jagged white shards. And for a moment, it felt good. It felt like something. Then I heard the front door open. I froze. She walked in like she still belonged here, red suitcase in tow. No guilt. Not even a flicker of hesitation. Just that smirk, cocky, defiant. Flight got canceled, she said, kicking off her shoes like nothing had changed. Miami's got storms. I didn't move. Just stared. She noticed the shattered plate, the mess on the floor, and raised an eyebrow. What the hell happened here? You throw a tantrum or something? Sit down, I said, voice low and tight. She laughed, like I was a joke. What? Is this an interrogation now? Don't be pathetic, Ethan. I slid the burner phone across the counter toward her. She looked at it, still playing unbothered. Oh, so you found that? That's all you've got to say? She shrugged. I told you, you can't stop me. I needed more than what you were giving me. I was tired of being invisible. Invisible. My voice cracked. You had everything. A house. A husband. Security. I had boredom, she snapped. You think this was some fairy tale? Same meals, same shows, same tired shirts. You stopped being a man, Ethan. You became furniture. Her words hit harder than any slap. And Chad. I asked. He's the exciting option? A married man with kids and a midlife crisis. She laughed. Laughed. He's more of a man than you've ever been. At least he knows how to make a woman feel alive. You? You make a woman feel stuck. It was venom. Pure and deliberate. And something in me went cold. You've been sleeping with him. In our house. In our bed. She didn't flinch. Sometimes, she said. When the timing worked out. I could have screamed. Could have put my fist through a wall. But instead, I moved slowly. Picked up a folder from the table and placed it in front of her. What's this? She asked, her tone still smug, but her brow creased. Divorce papers, I said. Already filed. And just so you're clear. Yes, I have proof. Yes, my lawyer has everything. And yes, those beach photos? They're going to look real nice in court. For the first time, her face twitched. The smirk cracked, just a hairline fracture, but it was enough. You're being dramatic, she said. No. I replied, my voice calm now. Too calm. I'm finally being the man you'll remember. She stared at me like I was a stranger. And maybe I was. Maybe the man she married was gone, and this one didn't bleed for her anymore. I walked past her, grabbed my keys, didn't look back. But as I reached the door, her voice followed me. You'll regret this. I paused, just for a second, then said, the only thing I regret is ever believing you were anything more than a lie I married. And I left her standing in the ruins she created. And for the first time in what felt like forever, I didn't feel broken. I felt free. I didn't have a plan. Just drove, aimless, until the sun dipped low and the sky turned a bruised orange. The road pulled me forward. My hands just followed. Eventually, I rolled into the lot of a roadside motel. One of those places with a flickering neon sign and curtains scarred with cigarette burns. Perfect. I needed somewhere that didn't ask questions. The room reeked of bleach and old sins. I dropped my bag on the bed and stared at the ceiling fan spinning slowly, like it had seen every kind of breakdown imaginable. My phone buzzed. Again and again. Lindsay. Messages bouncing between begging and blame. You don't have to do this. We can fix it. You're ruining your own life. This is your fault too. I made a mistake, but you pushed me there. That last one. That was the one that cut the deepest. I didn't answer. I blocked her number. Tossed the phone onto the dresser like it burned. Around midnight, I stepped outside. The air was thick and heavy, but at least it was honest. I sat on the curb, elbows resting on my knees, and just breathed. Let the silence wash over me. For once, the silence didn't feel empty. It felt like peace. The emptiness hit different now. Not just grief, but the brutal realization that everything I'd built my life around was smoke and mirrors. Then I thought of Rebecca, Chad's wife. I still had her number. After everything we shared that afternoon, the raw truth, the silence, the shattered photos, I felt like I owed her something. A check-in, a moment of human kindness. I texted, you okay? Her reply came fast. No, but thank you for asking. We talked for a while. Nothing heavy. Just two people drifting in the same storm, clinging to pieces of wreckage. She told me Chad hadn't come home. Said he'd texted some vague line about needing space and told her not to reach out. She was thinking of taking the kids to her sister's. Then she asked if Lindsay had said anything that felt real. I told her the truth. She said I'm furniture. Rebecca sent a broken heart emoji, then followed it with, sorry. That was dumb. You're not furniture, Ethan. She's just broken in ways we'll never understand. I don't know why, but that hit me. Not like a fix, but like someone stitching a wound closed with bare hands. Crude, but something. We stayed in touch. Little updates. Glimpses of healing in the fallout. She filed for divorce too. Said she found a burner in Chad's gym bag. Same routine. Same lies. Lipstick smears on receipts. Like they were reading from the same damn script. Back at the motel, I started piecing my life back together. Slowly, stubbornly. Called my lawyer. Shifted funds. Shut down joint accounts. Every step felt like a small reclamation. Of time. Of space. Of me. Then came the final insult. A letter from Lindsay's lawyer. Formal, cold. Amicable division of assets. Spousal support. A list of what she wanted, including the house. The house. The same place she defiled. The place she turned into a joke and a crime scene. I laughed. A dry, bitter sound that didn't feel like it belonged to me anymore. I called my lawyer. Amicable's off the table, I said. Burn it down. A few days later, she showed up. No text. No warning. Just a knock at my motel door like she still had rights to my life. I opened it slow. She looked worn out. Hair tied back. Dark circles under her eyes. Like the facade had finally fallen. You really meant it, she said. Yeah, I said. I did. She stepped in without asking. Looked around the room with a sneer. This is where you're staying now. This is where I'm getting my life back. She rolled her eyes. You're being petty. No, I said, folding my arms. You're being delusional. You think you can cheat, lie, humiliate me, and then just waltz back and like nothing happened? Her voice rose. I didn't think you'd be so dramatic about it. People make mistakes. Sleeping with someone for months, in our bed, isn't a mistake. That's a campaign. Silence fell between us like a blade. Then she broke it. He doesn't even want me now. I blinked. What? Chad, she said quietly. After the trip fell through, he said it was getting too real. Said I was acting crazy. Blocked me. I just stared. Let her words twist in the air. She wasn't sorry. She wasn't grieving. She was mad she lost. You know what's funny? I said. You torched your whole life for a guy who saw you as nothing but a weekend thrill. And now you're here, hoping I'll be your backup plan. Her eyes welled up, but I felt nothing. Not rage. Not sadness. Just nothing. You need to leave, I said. Ethan, please. I don't know what I'm doing anymore. That makes two of us, I said. Now get out before I call the front desk. She hesitated, waiting, maybe for mercy, maybe for weakness. She got neither. She walked out, and I shut the door behind her for the last time. Didn't even think about opening it again. The next morning, sunlight spilled through the broken blinds, warm and unforgiving. The silence was thick, but it didn't suffocate me. It breathed. No buzzing phone. No scent of lies trailing through the air. No messages waiting to sink claws into my back. I sat up, rubbed the back of my neck, and realized I'd slept 8 hours straight. First time in weeks. The weight wasn't gone, but it had shifted. Not crushing, just heavy. And maybe, just maybe, it was starting to lift. Later that day, I zipped up my bag and walked out of that motel room for good. No more hiding. No more surviving in limbo. It was time to step into whatever came next, broken pieces and all. I didn't go back to the house. That place wasn't mine anymore. She'd poisoned it, tainted every room, every memory. I didn't want it. Let her keep it. Let the walls echo her lies back to her in the dark. Instead, I found a small apartment downtown. Nothing fancy, just clean, quiet, mine. I paid 6 months up front. Bought a couch that didn't know her voice. A bed that hadn't felt her betrayal. Blank walls, new air, and a silence that felt like a beginning, not an absence. I took a picture of the keys resting in my palm and sent it to Rebecca. She replied with a heart and a thumbs up. Simple, warm. And then something unexpected happened. We kept talking. Not out of shared damage. Not just two trauma survivors comparing scars. No, this was different. This was discovery. We talked for hours about everything except them. Music, food, childhood, the strange ache of being unseen in a marriage. And sometimes she made me laugh. That was new. That was rare. But just as the dust began to settle, Lindsay struck again. One last cruel trick. She showed up at my office. No warning. No shame. Just that brittle smile she used to wear at holiday parties and for curated social media posts. My coworker buzzed in. There's a woman here. Says it's urgent. I didn't even glance up. Tell her I'm dead. 5 minutes later, she stood at my door anyway. Probably lied her way past the front desk. It wouldn't be her first performance. I looked up. There she was. Eyes red. Makeup smeared. Holding a manila folder like it meant something. You got 5 seconds, I said. I'm pregnant. The words landed like a bomb, but didn't go off. They just hovered there, heavy and confusing. Excuse me. She stepped inside like she had the right. Closed the door. Sat down like we were still married. I missed my period. Took 2 tests. Went to the clinic. It's real, Ethan. I leaned back, arms crossed. Is it mine? She flinched. Don't say it like that. You cheated on me. Repeatedly. In our house. In the guest room. You don't get the benefit of the doubt. I don't know, she admitted, voice barely above a whisper. That's why I'm here. To tell me you might be pregnant with maybe my kid? I didn't know who else to talk to. I stood up. Go talk to Chad. Oh wait. He blocked you, didn't he? She started crying. Again. But I didn't move. I wasn't her safe place anymore. If it's yours, I'll need help, she said. If it's mine, I replied, calm and cold, you'll get what's legal. Nothing more. And if it's not, then you better hope it's not. She left quietly. No drama. No parting shot. Just the echo of regret trailing behind her. I took the rest of the day off. Sat in my car for over an hour, forehead pressed to the wheel, trying to remember the last time I felt truly safe with someone. Not just secure, but seen. Funny how betrayal rewires your entire understanding of love. A week later, a message came through. It's not yours. No apology. No relief. Just closure served ice cold in 3 detached words. Like I was a checkbox she'd finally crossed off. I stared at the screen, then deleted her number. That night, I called Rebecca. Asked if she wanted to get dinner. No expectations. Just 2 people sharing a meal. She said yes. No hesitation. And when I hung up, I smiled. Really smiled. Not because I was healed. Not because everything made sense. But because I wasn't bleeding anymore. The next evening, we met at a small Italian place tucked between a flower shop and a quiet bookstore. The kind of spot you only find when you're not looking. She wore a soft green sweater. No makeup. Hair in a loose ponytail. No masks. No performance. Just her. And for the first time in a long, long time, I wasn't scanning her face for signs of betrayal. I just looked at her. She smiled when she saw me. Walked right into a hug that lasted long enough to mean something. Been a while, she said. Too long, I replied. And that night, we didn't talk about Lindsay. Or Chad. Not once. Not once did her name come up that night. We talked about music. How she used to play piano but gave it up after the kids were born. I told her about the time I crashed my dad's car in high school and kept the lie going until a neighbor sent over doorbell cam footage. We laughed so hard, the waiter checked on us twice. There was no pressure, no pretenses, just 2 people rediscovering what it meant to feel without analyzing every second of it. But even in that warmth, even surrounded by soft lights and slow music, something inside tugged at me. Not about Rebecca, about myself. I hadn't really looked in the mirror since the fallout. Not looked. I'd been reacting, surviving, going through motions. But who was I now? Without Lindsay. Without the version of me I used to believe in. The next morning, I ran. No plan. No playlist. Just pulled on an old hoodie and started moving. Through unfamiliar streets, past early morning joggers, gas stations, school buses. Pain shot through my legs, burned in my lungs, but I kept going. I ran until the thoughts stopped, until the motion swallowed everything. And when I finally stopped, panting, soaked in sweat, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Alive. It wasn't clarity. Not yet. But it was close. A few days later, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost let it go. I should have let it go. But I picked up. Ethan. Her voice. Quiet. Hollow. Different. Lindsay, I said flat. I'm in therapy now. Good for you. I just wanted to say, I'm sorry. For everything. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just needed to say it. Silence hung between us. I don't hate you, I said eventually. But I don't care anymore. That's what you took from me. You didn't just break us. You made me numb to what we had. She sniffled. I deserve that. Yes, I said. You do. I hope you find whatever it is you're looking for. I will, she whispered. Click. No screaming. No pleading. Just a quiet end to a chapter that overstayed its welcome. Weeks passed. Rebecca and I spent more time together. Dinners, slow walks, a weekend trip to the mountains with her kids. We moved gently. No rushing, no racing. We were still unpacking our damage. Still healing. But we were doing it side by side. One night, under a starry sky, her youngest asleep in the back seat, she said softly, "Do you ever think the pain had a purpose?" I thought of motel ceilings, broken plates, burner phones, silence. Yeah, I said. It taught me how blind I was. And how strong I actually am. She nodded. Same. We didn't say I love you. Not yet. But it was there, in the way she reached for my hand. In the way I held it, like I finally understood what it meant to keep something safe. Months passed. Leaves changed. I moved again, into a place with big windows and soft light. A place where laughter lived. Where betrayal no longer echoed through the walls. I didn't think of Lindsay much. Word was she'd moved to another city. Got a job. Started over. Good for her. I didn't hate her. I just didn't care. And that, I realized, was peace. If I could tell anyone going through what I went through one thing, it's this. You'll survive. You'll bleed. You'll scream and break and lose pieces of yourself you thought were forever. But on the other side, there's someone stronger, wiser, free. And one day, out of nowhere, you'll laugh. Not the hollow kind. The real kind. The kind that fills you instead of draining you. It was almost a year to the day when I passed her old house. I hadn't meant to. Took a wrong turn heading to a client. But there it was. Still beige with those navy shutters. The lawn was overgrown. Weeds clawed up through the cracks. The rosebush I used to trim every weekend was brown and brittle. It looked abandoned. Or maybe just unloved. I pulled over, parked across the street, and left the engine running. I could see the bedroom window from there, the one I used to stand in front of, brushing my teeth, while she curled her hair behind me. It felt like watching a life I no longer recognized. A ghost of a version of me that no longer existed. The same window she later locked when she didn't want me knowing what, or who, was happening inside. I didn't feel anger anymore. Just distance. Like watching a movie about someone else's life, someone else's heartbreak. Eventually, I pulled away from the curb and didn't look back. That evening, I told Rebecca where I'd gone. She didn't say much, just reached across the table and held my hand. "I'm glad it's not yours anymore," she said. "Yeah," I replied. "Me too." Later that night, after we'd tucked the kids into bed, we curled up on the couch under a blanket. The silence between us wasn't heavy. It was whole, peaceful. Then she asked, "Do you think you'll ever get married again?" I paused, not out of uncertainty, but to find the right words. "I think, if the right woman's already sitting beside me, then yeah. Someday." She smiled, rested her head on my shoulder. "Good answer." I kissed the top of her head. Some scars never vanish, but they fade. They become part of your skin, not your story. A few months later, I got a wedding invitation. One of Lindsay's old friends. Someone who still followed me online, for reasons I'll never understand. Inside was a photo from the engagement party. Lindsay was in the background, half smiling beside a man I didn't recognize. Her eyes looked tired. Her smile looked forced. I threw the invite away. It didn't matter. What mattered was this. I survived her lies. I rebuilt. And I didn't just move on. I leveled up. There was a moment, not long after, in the cereal aisle of a grocery store. Rebecca's youngest tugged my sleeve and asked, "Dad, can we get the marshmallow kind?" She froze after the word slipped out, eyes wide with panic, cheeks burning. But I just smiled. "Yeah, let's get that one." That was the moment I knew. This life, the one I thought ended the day Lindsay zipped up that red suitcase, was only just beginning. Not because I forgot the pain, but because I used it. Let it teach me, temper me, transform me. So if you're reading this, stuck in the wreckage of your own collapse, let me say this. You won't be okay tomorrow, or the day after. You'll break. You'll question everything. You'll wonder if anything will ever make sense again. But then, someday without warning, the weight will lift. You'll look in the mirror and see someone you respect, maybe even like. And you'll realize, she didn't break you. She revealed you, pulled back the curtain so you could meet the man you were always meant to be. The final thread tying me to the past snapped on an ordinary Thursday. I was clearing out a storage box I'd shoved in the back of the closet. Old receipts, love notes, photos from trips with Lindsay. Smiling faces, posed moments that once felt permanent. One photo caught my eye. The two of us standing in front of a waterfall. Her arms around my waist like I was her whole world. But it wasn't real. Just another performance. I didn't cry. I didn't feel regret. Just clarity. I dropped the whole box into the trash. Not out of rage. Not hate. But because I finally understood, those memories weren't mine. They were stories. Fabricated, curated, sold to me as love. But my story, the real one, that's the one I lived. The one where Lindsay didn't destroy me. She unmasked me. Tore down the illusion and left behind someone raw, scarred, but real. Someone who walked through hell and came out not untouched, but alive. And now, I laugh without flinching. I sleep without ghosts. I love, with everything I've got, and I don't look over my shoulder. Rebecca and I took our time. Let the seasons pass. Let healing set roots. When I asked her to marry me, my hands didn't shake. My voice didn't waver. I wasn't afraid. I was ready. She said yes. The wedding was small. Just friends. Her kids. A few tears. And vows that didn't promise perfection, just presence. And that, after everything, was more than enough. Sometimes the past tries to whisper. A street name, a scent, a fleeting memory. But I don't let it linger. Because the man I am now, he doesn't live there anymore. He's got a new home, a new love, a new life, and a new story, one carved with open eyes, bruised hands, and a heart that refused to stay broken. So to any man reading this, standing where I once stood, lost in the wreckage of what you thought would last forever, listen to me. Let her go. Let the pain shape you, not chain you. Let it forge strength, not bitterness. Walk out that door with your head held high, and don't look back. Because out there, beyond the lies, past the burn, there's a version of you waiting. A man who knows his worth, who's built from truth, not illusion. And he is worth every damn step it takes to find him.